Today we're going deeper into the operational secrets, the business models, the incentive structures, the confessions most CEOs would never make. Because here's what most people miss about Buffett. Yes, he's a brilliant investor, but he's also built one of the most valuable business empires in history. And in this letter, he reveals exactly how he did it. We're talking about a business model so good that customers pay you to borrow their money. An incentive system so effective that employees earn 26.9% bonuses. And a confession so honest it'll change how you think about success. This is Buffett's 1997 letter, Part 2. The operational playbook behind the philosophy. Let's dive in. Let me show you the greatest business model ever invented. It's simple. Customers give you money. You hold it. You invest it. You keep all the profits. And sometimes, this is the crazy part, the customers actually pay you to take their money. Sound impossible? Buffett's been doing it for 30 years. He calls it float. In his 1997 letter, Buffett explains, float is money we hold, but don't own. In an insurance operation, float arises because premiums are received before losses are paid, an interval that sometimes extends over many years. During that time, the insurer invests the money. Let me break down what this actually means. January, you pay GEICO $1,000 for car insurance. Maybe you'll have an accident in July. Maybe you won't. But for those 6 months or longer, GEICO holds your money. Now multiply that by millions of customers. Suddenly, Buffett has $7 billion of other people's money sitting there, waiting to pay future claims. What does he do with it? He invests it in Coca-Cola, in Gillette, in American Express, in businesses that compound at 15–25% returns. But here's where it gets insane. Most insurance companies pay more in claims than they collect in premiums. That underwriting loss is their cost of borrowing that money, like paying interest on a loan. Buffett's insurance companies? For the last 5 years in a row, they collected more in premiums than they paid in claims. He writes, in those years when we have had an underwriting profit, such as the last 5, our cost of float has been negative. In effect, we have been paid for holding money. Read that again. Paid for holding money. Customers gave him $7 billion. He invested it, and they paid him to take it. Buffett includes a 30-year table in his letter showing Berkshire's cost of float. Year after year, the column reads, less than 0. Meanwhile, government bonds were yielding 5 to 6%. So Buffett's getting paid to hold $7 billion, then investing it at 5 to 6%, then keeping all the gains. The accounting irony makes this even better. Float shows up as a liability on Berkshire's balance sheet. It's technically money they owe. But Buffett writes, though our float is shown on our balance sheet as a liability, it has had a value to Berkshire greater than an equal amount of net worth would have had. Translation: $7 billion in float is worth more than $7 billion in equity. Why? Because float comes with underwriting profits. Equity doesn't pay you to hold it. Now this isn't just about insurance. This is about recognizing business models where customers give you money before you deliver value. Think about it. Software subscriptions where customers pay $1,200 annually up front, but you deliver the service monthly? That's 12 months of float. Costco memberships where you collect $60 before selling a single hot dog? That's pure float. Airline miles where customers give you cash now for flights they'll take years later, if ever? Massive float. Gift cards where 15 to 20% never get redeemed? That's float plus profit. When you're analyzing any business as an investor, ask yourself, does this business generate float that management can invest wisely? If yes, and if the cost of that float is near 0 or negative, you found something special. Buffett's float grew from $17.3 million in 1967 to $7.1 billion in 1997. That's a 21.7% annual growth rate for 30 years. And it didn't cost him anything. In fact, it made him money. That's not just a good business model. That's financial magic. Now float is the foundation. But a foundation means nothing without the right people building on top of it. And that brings us to GEICO in 1997, where Buffett created an incentive system so effective that it changed everything. 1996. GEICO's employees just earned a record 16.9% profit-sharing bonus. Buffett and Tony Nicely, GEICO's CEO, had to expand their compensation chart because performance exceeded anything they'd planned for. Then 1997 happened. Policy growth jumped from 10% to 16%. They added 913,000 new policies versus 618,000 the year before. Underwriting profits hit 8.1% of premiums. They blew past the expanded chart again, so Buffett and Tony sat down, expanded the chart a second time, and wrote checks totaling $71 million to 10,500 employees. 26.9% of base compensation. Think about that. If you were a GEICO employee making $50,000 base salary, you just got a $13,000 bonus on top of your regular pay. But here's what makes this brilliant. It's not about the amount, it's about the formula. Buffett writes in his letter, "At GEICO, we are paying in a way that makes sense for both our owners and our managers. We distribute merit badges, not lottery tickets. Merit badges, not lottery tickets. Most companies pay bonuses based on stock price, which individual employees can't control, or based on subjective performance reviews, which turn into political games. Buffett's system at GEICO? Two simple, objective metrics: policy growth and profitability of seasoned business. That's it. No complex formulas. No subjective assessments. No corporate politics. If you help GEICO grow policies profitably, you make money. Period." Buffett continues, "In none of Berkshire's subsidiaries do we relate compensation to our stock price, which our associates cannot affect in any meaningful way. Instead, we tie bonuses to each unit's business performance, which is the direct product of the unit's people." Think about what he's saying. Berkshire's stock went up 34% in 1997. Most CEOs would tie bonuses to that. Buffett says, irrelevant. That wasn't Tony Nicely's doing. That was the market rising. Instead, he focuses on what Tony and his team actually controlled. Did they grow policies? Did they do it profitably? Yes and yes. So Buffett writes, "When that performance is terrific, as it has been at GEICO, there is nothing Charlie, and I enjoy more than writing a big check. The human element here matters too." Tony Nicely was 54 years old in 1997. He'd been with GEICO for 36 years. This was his best year ever. Buffett writes, "If I had known then what he had in store for us in 1997, I would have searched for still greater superlatives." That's not just a bonus system. That's a partnership built on decades of trust and aligned incentives. Now, why does this matter to you? If you're an employee, ask yourself, is my bonus based on things I can actually control? If it's tied to company stock price or CEO whims, you're playing a lottery, not earning merit badges. If you're a manager designing incentives, here's Buffett's formula. Pick 2 to 3 objective metrics that matter most. Make them measurable. Tie compensation directly. Remove the cap on upside. Pay fast. If you're an investor evaluating companies, look at compensation structures. Are bonuses tied to controllable outcomes? Or are they golden parachutes with no performance requirements? The GEICO test. Could an employee look at their job and think, if I do this well, I'll make a lot of money? At GEICO in 1997, the answer was crystal clear. Yes, at most companies? No chance. But building the right incentive structure is only half the battle. You also need to find the right people. And Buffett's strategy for finding great business owners might be the most underrated insight in the entire letter. 1983. Buffett just bought Nebraska Furniture Mart from the Blunkin family. He asks them a simple question. Are there any more at home like you? They give him 3 names. Outstanding furniture retailers in different parts of the country. None are for sale, so Buffett waits. 12 years pass. 1995. Irv Blunkin, the grandson, hears that one of those 3 Bill Child at R.C. Willey might be interested in selling. Buffett immediately makes the deal. And then he asks Bill the same question. Are there other great retailers out there? Bill names the same 2 retailers the Blunkins had mentioned back in '83. One is Star Furniture in Houston. 2 more years pass. Thursday before the 1997 annual meeting. Bob Denham from Salomon calls Buffett. Melvin Wolf, Star Furniture's CEO, wants to talk. Buffett invites him to Omaha for the weekend. Melvin attends the annual meeting, gets to know Berkshire, confirms his positive feelings about the company. A few days later, Melvin and Buffett meet in New York, single 2-hour session. Deal done. Buffett writes, as was the case with the Blunkins and Bill Child, I had no need to check leases, work out employment contracts, etc. I knew I was dealing with a man of integrity, and that's what counted. 14 years from question to acquisition. But when the moment came, 2 hours was enough. This is one of the most underrated strategies in investing or in life. Most people think deal-making is about investment bankers, auction processes, due diligence teams, 100-page contracts. Buffett's showing you a different path. Buy a great business. Ask the owner who else is great. Wait patiently years if necessary. When they're ready, move fast. Trust over lawyering. The Blunkins gave him the entire map in 1983. He just had to wait for the right moments. And notice the chain. Blunkins lead to R.C. Willey. R.C. Willey leads to Star Furniture. Each acquisition leads to the next. Buffett's not finding these through investment bankers. He's finding them through trusted relationships. Here's how you can use this strategy. After every great experience, great restaurant, great doctor, great contractor, great investment, ask, who else is exceptional in your field? Make a list. Stay in touch, wait. When the moment comes, move fast. Most people give up after 6 months. Buffett waited 14 years for Star Furniture. But he was ready when the call came. One more detail that shows character. When Melvin and his sister Shirley sold Star, they announced large special payments to employees who'd helped them succeed. Then they defined that group as everyone in the business. Buffett writes, under the terms of our deal, it was Melvin and Shirley's money, not ours, that funded this distribution. Charlie and I love it when we become partners with people who behave like that. That's what integrity looks like. And why the deal took 2 hours instead of 2 years. Now Buffett's built an empire on finding great people and structuring smart deals. But even he makes mistakes. And what he confesses next might be the most valuable part of the entire letter. Imagine you're a CEO. Your company just made $8 billion in a year. Grown book value 34%. Outperformed for 33 consecutive years. And you write a section titled, A Confession, where you admit, I've cost you money. That's what Buffett does in his 1997 letter. He's just acquired International Dairy Queen. The deal structure allowed sellers to choose cash or Berkshire stock. Even though he made the cash option more attractive, 55% still took stock. And that prompts this confession. Buffett writes, I've mentioned that we strongly prefer to use cash rather than Berkshire stock in acquisitions. A study of the record will tell you why. Then drops the bomb. If you aggregate all of our stock-only mergers, excluding those we did with 2 affiliated companies, you will find that our shareholders are slightly worse off than they would have been had I not done the transactions. Though it hurts me to say it, when I've issued stock, I've cost you money. He's done the math. Every stock-based deal he's made, shareholders are worse off. Not because the sellers were bad. Buffett makes this clear. The sellers were completely candid when we were negotiating our deals and have been energetic and effective ever since. So what's the problem? Buffett explains with a baseball analogy. For a baseball team, Acquiring a player who can be expected to bat .350 is almost always a wonderful event, except when the team must trade a .380 hitter to make the deal. Berkshire's roster: Coca-Cola, Gillette, American Express, See's Candies, GEICO, all .380 hitters. When you issue stock to buy something, you're trading pieces of all those businesses. Even if you're buying a .350 hitter, you're trading down. Buffett contrasts this with his cash deals, starting with National Indemnity in 1967 and continuing with, among others, See's, Buffalo News, Scott Fetzer and GEICO. We have acquired for cash a number of large businesses that have performed incredibly well since we bought them. Cash deals, home runs. Stock deals, cost shareholders money. He even quotes King Arthur's Camelot to make his point. Mordred could only marry up, everyone was better than him. Buffett's problem is the opposite. Marrying well is extremely difficult for Berkshire. Now this isn't just about mergers and acquisitions. This is about radical transparency when you've made mistakes, even when you're wildly successful overall. Most leaders would bury this analysis, justify past decisions, change the metrics, blame external factors. Buffett does the math honestly, admits the cost, explains why it happened, commits to doing better. He ends with a promise: so you can be sure that Charlie and I will be very reluctant to issue shares in the future. Here's why this confession matters. Buffett's shareholders read this in 1997, and they thought, if he's this honest about his mistakes when times are good, I can trust him completely when times are bad. That trust has compounded for decades since. When you're evaluating any leader, CEO, manager, politician, anyone ask, do they admit mistakes? Do they quantify the cost? Do they change behavior? If not, you're dealing with someone who values image over truth. Buffett values truth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. That's the standard. Before I let you go, there's one more story from this letter I need to share. It's about American Express and a golf game that made $3 billion. August 1994. Buffett owned American Express perks that were about to convert to common stock. He's trying to decide, sell or hold. Arguments to sell. Visa's crushing everyone. Competition is fierce. Take profits while you can. Buffett's leaning toward sell. Then he plays golf with Frank Olson, CEO of Hertz, at Prouts Neck, Maine. Buffett writes, here's where I got lucky. Frank is a brilliant manager with intimate knowledge of the card business. So from the first tee on, I was quizzing him about the industry. First tee, asking questions about credit cards. Second green. By the time we reached the second green, Frank had convinced me that Amex's corporate card was a terrific franchise, and I had decided not to sell. Back nine. On the back nine I turned buyer, and in a few months Berkshire owned 10% of the company. Current gain, $3 billion. From I should probably sell to I'm buying 10% in one golf round. Buffett frames this as 110% luck, the balance skill. But the skill was asking the right person, listening carefully, updating his beliefs, acting decisively. Most investors would commission a consulting report that takes 6 weeks. Buffett played golf with someone who knew, changed his mind by the second green, acted within months. That's not luck. That's wisdom in action. So let's bring this all together. The greatest business model is one where customers pay you to hold their money, then you invest it for massive returns. That's float. That's the foundation. The best incentive system ties compensation to what people actually control, not lottery tickets like stock prices, but merit badges based on clear metrics. That's GEICO's 27% solution. The smartest acquisition strategy is asking great owners who else is great, then waiting 14 years, if that's what it takes. That's patience with a purpose. The highest standard is admitting when you've cost people money, even when you're winning overall. That's radical honesty that compounds trust. And the fastest path to good decisions is finding the right expert and actually listening. even if it means changing your mind by the second green. These aren't just Buffett's 1997 insights. They're principles that separate builders from pretenders, operators from speculators, leaders from managers. Buffett ended his letter with an invitation to Omaha. I'll end with this. Take these operational secrets. Apply them to your business, your investments, your career, your life. The question isn't whether these principles work. Buffett's proven they do. The question is, will you actually use them? Here are the 5 operational secrets we covered from Buffett's 1997 letter. Build float businesses where customers pay you to hold their money. Design incentives that reward controllable outcomes, merit badges, not lottery tickets. Find quality by asking quality people, who else is great? Then wait patiently, confess mistakes honestly. Even when winning, it compounds trust. Seek expert input, listen carefully, decide fast. Second green decisions. The full 1997 letter is linked in the description. Part 1 covered the mindset principles, the preening duck, Ted Williams' strike zone, and the hamburger paradox. Part 2 covered the operational playbook you just watched. Together, they form Buffett's complete system. The right mindset plus the right operations equals compounding excellence. If this operational deep dive changed how you think about building businesses, hit that like button. Subscribe for more legendary investor breakdowns. No hype, just wisdom from the source. And drop a comment. Which operational secret are you implementing first? I read every single one. Remember, this video is for educational purposes only, not investment advice. Always do your own research and never risk more than you can afford to lose. I study legendary investors so you don't have to. See you in the next breakdown.